We start with an excavation of the site with a size that is dependent on soil bearing capacity. A leveling mud mat is poured over the bottom. Column support plinths are poured in place. Column base assemblies the size of small shipping containers are then precisely placed on the plinths using the 150-ton crane. Thick concrete base slab is poured to distribute loads. Concrete transfers load from columns to base. Backfill is placed over the concrete. Transition concrete to above grade. Pour concrete retaining walls. Backfill to the surface. Install two 750-ton climbing beams. Install lift deck infill beams. Install cantilever work deck framing. Install the walking deck plating. Install the movable deck with hydraulics and rollers. Set the movable deck. Attach the office frame and stairs. Set the office and access buggies. The 150-ton crane mounts on the movable deck. Add a foundation and drum hoist. Set the lower column assemblies. Load and anchor the 150-ton crane. Mount the auxiliary lift frame. Raise the crane and work deck to the top. We have an elevated work deck with all safety features, toilets, office, tool room, personnel access using hoisted buggies. Extend the boom to lift the next 4 tower sections with full 360-degree rotation. Raise the work level to 48 meters. The ground-mounted drum hoist and auxiliary frame are used to lift all elevated tower sections because the crane hook cannot reach the ground. Column sections can be stored on the lift frame until the crane hook becomes available. The crane has full 360-degree rotation, although it is not shown to rotate in this video. Each of the visible surfaces of the 4 columns provide continuous lateral bracing to significantly heavier 4 internal columns. These are shown as green and red. Continue to lift and set column sections and climb the work deck until the multi-column tower is done. Large structural beams provide rigidity between the column tops before the work deck is lowered. The lift deck is brought to the ground and the crane is removed. The multi-column erection demonstrated here has 7.5 meter column-to-column clearance, 10 meters center-to-center, and about 135 meter total height. Fill the depression between the columns with crane mats up to the surface. Bring in our lift rigging with 2 500-ton shackles. The lift deck is lowered to connect the rigging. Shippable segments are assembled into a single column with heavy internal columns. The yaw ring is attached. This transition column is moved under the lift deck where it is rigged, lifted, and rotated to vertical. A transition frame is assembled from shippable components. The frame is mated to the column. They are temporarily moved. An 800-ton nacelle is transported to the base of the columns where it is rigged to the lift deck and lifted. Connect nacelle to column and move. Remove the below deck heavy lift rigging. Place the tower top lift mechanisms onto the lift deck. Mount these mechanisms on top of the tower and rig through the drum hoist on the ground. Each beam can control 100 tons independently. Remove the crane mats at the base. Lower the work deck and clear it of obstructions. Transport the first blade to the base of the towers. Connect 2 mechanisms for lifting and 2 for rotating. Rotate and lift the first blade. Return the nacelle and transition assembly and mate to the blade. Support the transition structure and nacelle from below. The transporter machinery is then removed. The climbing deck rises to accept the load, then climbs about 20 meters further. The second blade is transported to the base of the tower and lifted with the topside lift beam. The third blade is transported also to the base of the tower and lifted to connect to the hub. This climbing deck can lift 1,500 tons of machinery to the top of the tower. The movable deck assures column to tower clearance during a very stable lift. A rigid connection is made, assuring clearance between all components. During operation, a 12 megawatt nacelle on a 150 meter tower using only a 150-ton crane. The deck is then used to install all remaining structural members. The deck is transported as a single unit to the next tower.